So as I've been upgrading my lenses from the EF f4 to the RF 2.8, I'm pinning them against one another just to see how big the difference is. I did a video comparing the 24-70s, the 16-35, and the 15-35, and now we're going to do the 70-200. So I have the EF 70-200 f4 version 2 and the RF 70-200 f2.8. So we're going to pin these images against one another in Lightroom and see how the image quality holds up with one versus the other. So let's get into this. So something to keep in mind here, there is an adapter for the EF, so I don't know what that means. I don't know if that changes the focal length or not. Like, I don't know if it makes it like an extension tube. Like, I have no idea. But if we take a look at this here, the active is the EF 70-200 f4. The one I pinned it up against here, that is the RF 2.8, and they look like different focal lengths. Like, this 70 is pretty tight, and this 70 is it's a bit wider, and that's not a good or a bad thing. It's just a thing. Now, this could also be a product of focus breathing on either lens. I don't know, because I was confined to my studio. So maybe if I'm focusing on a subject that's further in the distance, this might change, honestly. Like, that's the thing. Like, this isn't going to be a perfect comparison, but it is going to tell me the image quality difference, and that's what I'm looking for here. So we're going to pin them against each other. This is at f4. Let's zoom in. So at f4, it does look like the RF lens is sharper. It also looks like the RF lens is a little bit brighter, even at f4, and that does happen sometimes between lenses. Like, f-stop is not like a perfect indicator of how much light is actually coming through. Taking a look at the general color between the two, they both look good. I didn't have a problem with the EF f4 lens. Honestly, I've always loved that lens. It is an amazing lens. The upgrade came because I wanted good bokeh, or bokeh, or whatever you want to call it, that beautiful blur. I wanted more of that. I like controlling every little bit when it comes to the settings, and something I started to realize is I wanted more creative control over my depth of field. The f2.8 lenses gives me a lot more depth to play with. And I'm currently filming this at f2.8 on the 24-70, so I'm using f2.8 a lot and I'm loving it. It is a bit crazy that there is quite a difference. I don't know what millimeter difference this translates to, but there is definitely a focal length difference between these lenses. Again, I don't know if that's the extender, I don't know what that is, but there's a difference. The RF lens does extend out, so maybe because it's shorter, I have no idea. But comparing both, they both look good. The contrast looks good on both, the color looks good on both. The RF is sharper, but they are comparable. And what's interesting is the RF is showing better resolution and it's wider. So that's at a heavier crop. So it's sharper at a heavier crop than the EF lens, which is already kind of cropped in a little for whatever reason. Whatever Canon did with this RF glass, it is mind-blowing. And it's also unreal how small this RF 2.8 70-200 is. It's almost the same size as my 24-70. It fits in my bag this way. Like, I'm loving how portable it is. It's great. Like, that's not that big at all. Yeah, it extends out, but it's so small. It's so small. Here's the 15-35. Like, yeah, it's bigger, but like, not by a whole lot. So the portability is next level. Once you start working with a high megapixel camera, these things start to matter. Your lens choice can restrict the resolution you're getting out of your camera. And this RF glass is really good. Looking at this hot shoe here, it looks like the RF glass is sharper, and that's just nuts to me because I'm cropping in heavier in order to get to that same image. So this RF 2.8 glass was 100% worth the upgrade for that alone. The EF f4 glass was sharp. Like, all of those lenses were by no means soft, but this RF 2.8 glass is next level. The resolution and sharpness is incredible. So let's move on to 7.1, f7.1. So looking at f7.1, it looks like the light is more corrected here. At f4, the 2.8 was letting in more light, but at f7.1 they look the same. Zooming in here, they both look very sharp. The RF does look like it is sharper again. And when we look at the edges, they're both very good. I've never had a problem with chromatic aberration with the EF f4 70-200 version 2. I've never had a problem with it. The RF, it seems to be the same. It seems to be just as good. And that's good to see. So comparing them again, they look good. They both look good. It does look like the RF is sharper. If we zoom in a little bit here on that Canon logo, the RF looks more defined. It looks sharper. The EF just is a little bit softer here, and it looks like there's a tiny bit of, just a smidge of discoloration between that white and black there. A little bit on the RF too, that just, it happens, but there's more of it on the EF. I'm sure profile correction, like that type of stuff, will fit. Yeah, profile correction fixes that, so don't even worry about it. So far what we can gather is that the focal length looks a little different between the two. Both are at 70 millimeters, but for whatever reason, the RF is just wider, but the RF is so much sharper that I can crop in more and get better resolution still. So I think it's just a win-win-win on that sense. Like, yeah, it's wider, but I can crop just as much and get better results. So it's a win. Just for fun, this is f2.8, just to see how it looks. It looks really sharp. f2.8 looks really good. Lots of light, looks awesome. Like, it's really sharp. I'm surprised. Oftentimes lenses wide open aren't the sharpest, so this is really good. I'm not seeing any crazy fringing, not seeing any like off discoloration. No, f2.8. The f2.8 looks good on this lens. I'm very happy with the f2.8. Overall, very good. So it's sharper, I get more crop out of it, and it lets in more light, and I get more background separation when I want it, more bokeh, whatever. So this is just win all around. This RF glass, I'm telling you, it is really good. So now we're gonna take a look at 200 millimeters and see the difference here. So the EF's always in the active, the RF's always in the reference. Both are at f4, 200 millimeters. We're seeing a little bit of a focal length looking difference again. The RF is looking wider at 200 as well. So the 200 millimeters on the RF is wider again. This can be from a multitude of things. This can be from the adapter causing extra space. This could be from the focal the distance from the subject. Again, this can be like, if I'm focusing on something really far away, the RF, maybe it becomes more cropped in. It's hard to say. I honestly don't know. But in this situation, being probably, I don't know, like 8 feet away from my subject, in this situation, this is the results. There is a difference here. The EF lens is more cropped in. It looks like a similar story though. The RF is so much sharper that you get more crop out of it, and it looks just as sharp, if not sharper. So these RF lenses, you can't beat them. The native RF glass, they did a really good job with it. And some were concerned about the external zoom, and I can see why. External zoom can, dust gets in there, whatever, but Canon is really good with their weather sealing, and I trust that, they're not just gonna make something worse. So this is probably better weather sealing, I'm going to guess, than even the previous model, so I'm not worried about it. So it looks like the RF is letting a little more light at f4. They're both f4. Yep, both f4. Both the same settings. Just is what it is. When we look at the background, both look good. Again, never really had a problem with chromatic aberration with the EF lens. I mean, small amounts, but the lens correction profile will get that out, no problem. RF is a little less green, it's more blue, but that's probably more light reflection. I'm gonna say the RF's better when it comes to this. And again, I'm cropping in more. Because the RF's wider. So it's one of those things that, like, even though yes, the RF has this weird thing where it is continually wider than the EF 70-200 f4, it's so much sharper that I can crop more and get the same image with better image quality, so I'm not worried about that at all. So far I'm seeing no downside to this upgrade. Let's take a look at f7. So drag that up there. Again, more crop power with the RF. It's sharper, better resolution. When you're working with a high megapixel camera, this matters. If you're working with under 30 megapixels, this does not matter. This really only applies, like this level of sharpness only applies if you are working with 30 plus megapixels, I'm going to say. 45 megapixels is a lot, and yes, you notice the detail difference, so the RF glass is worth it. Absolutely, if you're shooting with the R5, go get the RF 20, or go get the RF f2.8 glass, because it is so much sharper that you will notice the difference, and it will make your camera body worth it. Unless you put really good glass on a camera like that, you're not going to get the full potential of what that camera can get you. So upgrading to the f2.8 glass RF, it's worth it so far in every instance. The color looks good on both. I have no complaints about either. Looks like chromatic aberrations under control with both. The focal length thing is just kind of weird to me, but the sharpness thing is, it's just nuts. The RF and what it can do with sharpness. Let's take a look here. So this is f2.8. So f2.8 versus f7. I'm just going to take a quick look. So at f2.8 at 200, around the center of the lens, so this is kind of like the center of the image, it is slightly softer. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because what I like about this lens is that they specifically kind of optimize the sharpness to be more in that rule of thirds area, which very much suits my shooting style. So I really like that Canon did that. Optimizing the sharpness for that, that area was a good move. I think that was brilliant. But this is very sharp at f2.8. This is very sharp. The colors look great. The light is awesome. No complaints whatsoever. Let's check chromatic aberration. It looks under control. And this is all not profile corrected, nothing like that. Overall, I'm very, very happy with how this lens performs. It's absolutely nuts. And the background separation you get, let's compare it to the f4. It's just different. I like it. So in conclusion, in this instance, the RF 70 to 200 f2.8 well outperformed the EF 70 to 200 f4 version 2. That's to be expected. There is a huge price difference here. But if I was working with a 30 megapixel or less camera, I might still look into that EF. Lens, because price-wise, it's really good bang for buck. It's really, really good bang for buck. I had no complaints. The chromatic aberration was always under control. The image quality always looked great. I've taken some of my favorite photos with that lens. Zero complaints. And that goes for all of the f4 glass. All of it's been really good. I've had no problems with them. Selling it really comes down to the RF glass is so much sharper and because I'm working with a high megapixel 45 megapixel camera, and even my R is 30 megapixel, that's higher resolution. You need good glass to really get the most out of those camera bodies. So for me, the RF 2.8 glass, 100% worth it. That is worth the investment for me. And I do make money as a photographer, so it makes sense to me. So if you're making money as a professional photographer, I highly recommend the RF 2.8 glass, as it is incredibly sharp. So sharp that you may get a wider image, but you can crop in more. I absolutely love it. And the low light capability, it's just fantastic. So if you're a hobbyist or you're on a budget and you're just wanting something with a little more reach, I would suggest the EF f4 version 2 specifically lens. It is a very good lens, and especially if you're working under 30 megapixels, you're not going to notice a huge difference anyways. And I shoot at f2.8 a lot because I like that separation. and at 200 millimeters, it is nuts. It looks so good. It looks so good. Because when you use a telephoto, you get more bokeh, or bokeh, whatever you want to call it. You get more of that separation. When you're working at a wide angle, you almost need the lower f-stop as low as you can possibly get it, because you don't get the same separation, right? So I'm just loving this lens so much. But yeah, if you're working with under 30 megapixels, f4 version 2, you're going to get that real cheap secondhand. Just adapt it. It looks good. There's very little chromatic aberration. It looks awesome. It's sharp. It does the job. It really did do the job. If you're a professional and you're wanting ultimate image quality, ultimate sharpness, yeah, go for the RF 2.8 glass. You won't regret it in any of them. So far, the 15 to 35, the 24 to 70, the 70 to 200, f2.8, every single one of them is amazing. They all have image stabilization. They all are really, really sharp. They're all very good color contrast. They look great. 15 millimeters, that's a fun throw in, just having that extra, room to play with. Yeah, you're not gonna regret it. Buy it, pull the trigger, do it. Don't look for any other reason other than it looks that much better. If you're working with an EOS R and R5, pull the trigger. The RFL glass, oh my word, it blows my mind. But not my rambles helpful at all. Great. If not, then thanks for watching. I appreciate it. I'll try to throw in more entertainment, I guess, along the way for people who don't care about whatever. But yeah, I'm just pixel peeping. That's all I'm doing. And then I'm taking you along for the journey because why not? Yeah, until next time. Peace.